Hello, you're listening to Cheat Sheet. I'm Sophie Ridge.
And I'm RidgeandFrost. It's Wednesday, the 28th of January. Here's what's happening today.
Keir Starmer lands in China today. He's gone in search of growth, but he'll be well aware of the risks of being too close to China.
President Trump says he will de-escalate the situation in Minneapolis. We'll have an update.
And today, the first ever female Archbishop of Canterbury starts a new job. So Keir Starmer lands in China today. He's going to be touching down about 9:30 UK time. And it's the first trip there by a British PM in nearly 8 years, which I guess just illustrates that, yeah, we need China, but the British Prime Ministers are well aware of the optics of being seen as too close to them.
Yeah, and I think that's a good starting point. So Theresa May was the last Prime Minister to go in 2018. Since then, German leaders have gone 4 times. Macron has gone 3 times. And even though the US rhetoric towards China has been very strong, you could even argue some of their actions haven't been as strong. For example, Biden's Treasury Secretary and Secretary of State, Yellen and Blinken, went quite a few times, in fact, during those presidencies. And President Trump recently met President Xi in Korea and is expected to travel there in April. So I think the idea that the Prime Minister is going at all is completely legitimate. We need to do this. Others are doing this. And by the way, the elephant in the room, the country with the very tough rhetoric on China, is increasingly less reliable. So you know, it's the right thing to be doing.
As the PM himself said, like it or not, China matters.
Exactly. I think you've also got to be aware we can't trust them like an ally. They're still... Everyone kind of dances around what word to use. They're still an adversary, if not an enemy. So I think it's all kind of with the right mindset. The question then is what comes out of this particular trip. And I don't think we're expecting a big trade deal. I don't think we're expecting the release of Jimmy Lai, which would be a huge coup, for example.
And just remind us who that is.
Who is a British citizen who is jailed, some say without any legitimate trial, in Hong Kong for speaking up about democracy abuses there. 50 business leaders are going with him, but they're not actually, for the most part, CEO level, which some point to the fact that this was quite hastily pulled together because they were waiting for the approval of the embassy here. So we'll see what big announcements come out of it. But either way, even if this is a first step, as the Prime Minister says it, to thaw the Ice Age relationship, I think that needs to be done.
We've been watching, of course, the escalating situation in Minneapolis, the shooting of these 2 US citizens by ICE agents, immigration agents, if you like. And I guess the fault lines that that's exposed in America. But what we are starting to see, is it going too far to say, is an attempt by the president to de-escalate.
You know, we have Tom Homan there now. We put him in there. He's great. And they met with the governor, the mayor, everybody else, and we're going to de-escalate a little bit.
So late Sunday, replacing who was in charge on the ground was the headline. The question yesterday was, would he go further, for example, and directly throw 2 key people under the bus? Greg Bovino, who'd been head of border control, removed from Minneapolis, or Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary back in Washington. And he kind of backed her yesterday, even if she's not now sort of the front runner on it. So I don't read this as incremental day over day, but there was definitely a shift late Sunday night, and it's one to continue to watch.
It's interesting as well, because obviously Alex Pretty was carrying a weapon. He was carrying a gun, which he was legally allowed to do, right? Donald Trump was pushed by reporters on this, and he ended up saying that Mr. Pretty shouldn't have been carrying a gun, which feels as like, you know, kind of outside a UK person looking at it. Like, I thought these were the guys who were pro carrying guns.
Yeah, well, it also led to a statement that got a bit of attention yesterday that the NRA, the National Rifle Association, very powerful gun lobby, typically supports Republicans, typically supports Donald Trump, issuing a statement back out saying he has a right to carry a gun.
Yeah. And the other news to bring you tonight is that overnight a man's been arrested for spraying the Democratic US Representative Ilhan Omar with a liquid in Minnesota as well. She wasn't injured, it should be said, but she has been a target of some pretty frequent political attacks from President Trump as well.
I have to say, I think the government's been watching mornings, because quite often you are saying, where are they on getting people ready for the AI revolution? What are we learning today?
Yeah, this is like, I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this, as I know you have as well, Wilf, because I just feel like we're tinkering around with policies around the edges and ignoring the huge juggernaut that is coming down the track, or already here in many ways, when it comes to AI and the use of artificial intelligence and what that's going to mean from jobs to absolutely everything. So the government is trying to show that it's on the front foot with AI. They're offering free AI training for every adult in the UK. It's basically short online courses to help people use AI at work. So it might be, drafting texts or creating emails, completing administrative tasks. It's interesting because in some ways, like, this is very, very, very smart, because AI is here. People are using it all around the world. If we want the UK workforce to be competitive, then they need to know how to do this stuff, right? And we're already starting to see some kind of slightly worrying trends in the job market as well. But I guess there will be some, people out there as well who are like, should we be encouraging the use of AI in this way? Don't people need to use their own brains, their own critical thinking?
Well, yeah, I guess it all comes down to what's on these courses. I fear this will be a reactionary move, as if to try and catch up people to the disruption they've already faced. The fundamental thing we've got to do is change our education system for not just today, but for the next decade, and prepare young people for what's to come. So hopefully they're thinking about that as well. Let me put it this way. I don't think my mum's going to be logging on for an AI lesson. And so a sort of basic, high level, free for everyone course, I just don't imagine it'll cut through.
A little update to bring you now from Ucas, that's the University Admissions Service, because they've said that the number of 18-year-olds from the poorest areas who are applying to university has actually gone up in every single part of the United Kingdom. So, of course, Ucas say this is pretty encouraging, right? And I think it is quite an interesting trend, because obviously it goes against what we've seen on pressures on cost of living, on lots and lots of narratives around university courses not being worth it, on student loans, which we've obviously covered on this programme as well. But it hasn't been putting off lots of kids.
I guess all the more reason to get the student loan funding structure right going forward, which regular listeners will know is something we talk about quite a lot. Dame Sarah Mullally will become the first female ever to be Archbishop of Canterbury today. She was named back in October. I kind of can't believe this. First woman ever of 106.
Yeah. I know, it's quite a moment.
106th Archbishop, and we've never had a woman before.
My
God.
It really is genuinely quite a moment. It's only also, I was interested to learn, it was only just over 10 years ago that the first ever female bishop was brought into the Church of England.
Really?
Which is not that long. 10 years is really not that long. So we chatted about the Baftas yesterday with the predictions. Got your babysitter sorted?
Yes. We are going to see Hamlet on Friday.
Are you?
Very late showing, 4 p.m.
Past your bedtime.
Well, I still mean by the time it's finished, with all those bleeding trailers, I'm not going to be home until about 8.
So just to run you through the nominations, One Battle After Another has 14 nominations, which you've seen. You liked it,
Really
right?
good, yeah.
Sinners, which is a vampire horror movie, has 13.
Which I haven't seen, and it got loads of Oscar noms too, so I need to add that to the list.
And then on 11, we've got Marty Supreme and also Hamlet. So, could be a success for some British film and some of the Irish stars as well, like Jessie Buckley.
And I've seen Marty Supreme, very good. Haven't seen Hamlet on Friday, so I feel very plugged in this year. That does it for today's cheat sheet. Don't forget, if you've got a story that you want us to cover or a thought on the podcast, please let us know. Cheatsheet@sky.uk.